Welcome to this latest edition of Japan's Top Business Interviews. It is my great pleasure to have an old friend of mine, Seiichiro Asakawa, who is the president of Tokyo Chemical Industries. Thank you for joining me on the show.
Pleasure.
Great pleasure. So, the audience may know of you or may not know of you, but for those who don't know, can you talk a little bit about your background and a little bit about TCI, about Tokyo Chemical Industries, so people get a bit of an idea of how big the company is, how many people work for you, how many countries you're in, etc., that type of thing, and also your background.
Okay, let me start with the nature of the business. The company I work for is the Tokyo Chemical Industry, it's called, and the company produces reagents. It is a lab it's like chemicals used in a lab for experimental use. Our customers are usually universities, pharmaceuticals, to any kind of R&D activity institutions, including material science, batteries, and solar cell, and so forth. So. Basically, what we do is we produce the chemicals and pack it and ship it out. And started from Japan. Now it's basically U.S., Europe, India, and China as well.
How many people work for the company altogether globally?
Right now, about 800.
800 in Japan?
In Japan, 450,
450.
I would say.
So tell us about yourself. I think you're the third generation of the family to run this business. Is that right?
Yes, it is. From this business, this particular business model, I be considered as a third generation, but goes back to almost like 125 years old. Company history. We started off from medicinal chemicals. I mean, it's pretty much a medicines, from coming from China and Europe. We used to import those medicines to Edo, Meiji, during the Meiji era. And considering that part, I be considered as a sixth generation. And after the World War II, we started totally, I wouldn't say totally, similar rare chemicals, but in a different nature, which is laboratory chemicals.
And, well, you're the sixth or third generation, whichever way you look at it. How did you get involved in the business? Were you straight into the company from university, or did you work somewhere else and then join? How did you get started?
My father never really asked me to work for the company. He basically told me that I can do whatever I want. But after graduating from junior high school, I started to have a sense of I need to be studying abroad and get more. Want to see the big picture rather than just stay in Japan. So I decided to study in the U.S. From 17 with my own will, and went to boarding school in the U.S.
Oh, whereabouts?
Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia. All boys too at the time. And I went to college in the U.S. After graduating from high school. And
where did you go to college?
Washington, D.C. It was called American University. I studied finance instead of chemistry. And after graduating from the college, went to work for a bank in New York. It was a Japanese bank, so-called Industrial Bank of Japan at that time. Now it's a former bank of Mizuho, I think. And I worked there for 4 years, and after that I came back to Tokyo and worked for TCI, Tokyo Chemical Industry.
What made you choose to get out of banking and come into the family business?
It was a big transition, I tell you, culturally and also in many ways. After 10 years I spent in the U.S., coming back home was not a really easy transition.
Why? Why didn't you stay with Mizuho and stick with banking? Why get into the chemical business?
First of all, banking. I wasn't really. I wasn't gonna really work for the industry. I mean, I did it for my career experience. I wanted to learn how the system works and how banks try to evaluate those companies, and suddenly my company TCI has a relationship with the particular bank I worked for. So I could see and I could learn how the bank works, and it was a great educational experience for me.
So let's think about, you've been working in New York for Japanese Industrial Bank, which becomes Mizuho eventually. You come back to Japan. Now you're given some roles, I guess, in a leadership position at some stage. And here you are, you're very Western educated, and you've got to deal with very traditional Japanese chemical industry staff. They've been working in the company probably a long time. They're probably much older than you. What were some of the challenges you found in leading people in Japan?
It was difficult. As I said, culturally first, the mentality of New York banking is really fast, and also you're part of the system basically, and the system is almost perfect. The employment system and the people work there are brilliant, really sharp people, and with a higher wage, I guess. But back, TCI at that time, almost 25, 30 years ago, it was a very small company, 150 max.
So it's grown from 150 to 800 in that time. That's incredible.
Yeah. At that time, it was a very small company, and very Japanese, not even, just a few international employees, but basically it was a very domestic company, and mentality of the company was, my father had a really strong leadership, and the rest of the people just followed his command basically, and it was like a one king organization, I would say. And there is a benefit and also disadvantage in such a structure. For example, a good part was the quick decision making. Strong leadership. He makes all the decisions. But on the other hand, most of the employees are really good at executing what was instructed by my father, but never had opportunity to actually make decisions. So all these decision-making process was absent in the entire company, and I had to build the organization from a totally different dimension, and it was a very difficult.
How did you go about doing that?
I figured I cannot really imitate what my father was doing at the time, and I figured if I want to grow the organization in a larger scale, then I would not be able to give instructions for more than 150 people. And all these 150 people are loyal employees of my father. They only look at my father, and nobody look at me. coming from U.S., coming from finance background, and this is a manufacturing high-tech company. They only talk about tech. They don't talk about money. They don't talk about cost, because cost is taken care of my father. So basically, their interest is the tech, and in that culture, I could not really adapt myself into it. So if I take over this organization and make it try to grow, I had to think about how I would approach the company people, employees, by delegating a lot of tasks and roles. That's what I had to do, and it took me a lot more than I thought at the time.
How many years?
These days, I feel like I really accomplished, but it took me a while, 20 years, if I look back. But after 10 years, I think my employees got the message.
10 years.
After 10 years, yes.
Wow.
Before
that's tough.
then, even if I asked to take a leadership and you can make your own decisions, they did not want to make decisions. They were afraid to make decisions.
So how do you convince people who've been in a way, comfortable position of taking orders and therefore no accountability, to now say, oh, okay, I'll make some decisions and take some accountability? How do you convince people to make that switch?
Before I became CEO of the company, a lot of my suggestions were rejected simply because lack of experience.
Rejected by who?
Rejected by employees, rejected by the board members, rejected by everybody, basically. Nobody listened because of young people don't have the experience. So what I came back to convince my men is to approach with the financials, data, proof, evidence. So I did a lot of analysis of my company and came up with the data, and I showed all the data to whatever suggestion that I made, has the reason for it. The reason is because of this number, and those numbers, nobody can deny it. Nobody can reject. So they had no choice but accepting the fact, and I'm trying to prove that it needs to be fixed. And little by little, by doing that, employees started to be convinced by my suggestions and what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to do. And it took me a while for them to digest the importance of the data, importance of the evidence. Otherwise, it's just a argument over who has more experience over who.
Mm-hmm. Which you're never going to win,
No.
that argument. So when did you start moving the company outside of Japan? Because now you've got a big footprint around the world. Was that something you started?
Yes, basically. My father started a little bit to invest in the U.S. because that was his dream to go abroad, and my grandfather wanted to bring this company to global scale. He died at the age of 63, but he never saw the company going global. And when my father accomplish that, particular dream, my grandfather was already passed away.
Oh.
So my father used to tell me that, while you're alive, and try to do as much as you can. So, since I heard the story, I kind of realized I don't have the tech background. So, what I can do, what I can contribute to the company is global scale up, and also different way of management based on the evidence, based on the practicality, based on the efficiency. All these management education I got from the U.S. I try to put as much as I can into the company, and instead of using my competing with the employees with technical knowledge, which I didn't have. So ever since I took over the company, even before, a little bit before, I myself went to Europe to stay as an expat, to open up European first warehouse in Belgium. That was a great experience for me to realize the possibility of or expansion into a different market. And after coming back home, I worked for a Chinese investment and the Indian expansion as well. So within 15 years, I would say, we expanded different parts of the world, different markets, I would say. And before then, almost 100% of the company revenue was coming from the Japanese domestic market. Today we have more than 50-60%, close to 60% of entire revenue coming from overseas.
That's impressive. And how about the people that you're hiring in India and China and Europe and America? In terms of, managing those people is entirely different to managing Japanese people. So how did you go about dealing with that? Because even Indians and Chinese are totally different, and so even within regions, probably within India, probably within China, they're different again. So how did you go about managing the overseas team?
People say, Chinese and Indians, Americans, all different, but basic element is, principle is, I think it's the same. It's a matter of time and also environment. Of course, the regulation and practice is different, but the motivation, is basically the same. And Japanese young workers, they used to be very motivated. They're really eager to learn, and eager to grow, eager to challenge. And I still see that a lot in Chinese employees and Indian employees. They're very motivated, and their willingness to grow, their willingness to learn is remarkable. And the language-wise, India, they do speak English, but basically, you have to get used to, their English. But Chinese people, their English level is not as high as that of Japanese, but still, they're willing to learn. They're willing to use English as much as possible. But my employees in Japan, some people are very motivated, but some people just given up, and I'm trying to convince all my employees to learn and be able to communicate with the overseas operations. And some people unfortunately stop trying, and I feel a little difference in that respect.
Is that an age thing? Like people who are a little bit older.
That could be.
For
that
them,
could be
it's just
too.
like
Yeah.
just they feel it's impossible. It's so far from their reality.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas maybe the education of younger people, they get a little bit better command of English.
Right. Younger people are used to using ITs and used to getting information from internet. And there for them the world is a really close existence, but the people from above certain age, they think, oh, global thing, it's not my game, it's not my world. So they try to segregate themselves in a small corner, but young people has no hesitation of accepting, trying many things. But still, I see a little slight difference mentality in the Japanese and Chinese and Indian as well.
If you want to be successful as a leader, do the Leadership Training for Managers course. All companies need people who can both manage and lead. Leading people screams out for real skills in communication, dealing with all different types of people, being excellent at innovation, planning, delegation, handling mistakes, doing performance reviews really well, and inspiring and motivating the team. Do the Leadership Training for Managers course now in either Japanese or English. What about between the young people today and maybe the young people 20, 30 years ago that you first encountered?
Good question.
What's
yes.
happened? What's the change in culture and society now with young people?
The young people, I don't want to say it, but when I was a young people back in 90s and 80s, around the bubble years, I think their mentality is something close to the Chinese mentality today, and so as Indian mentalities. They are not afraid of trying anything. They are willing to challenge. They are willing to fail even. And today's Japanese society, their willingness to challenge and try new things is somewhere reserved.
How do you encourage them to innovate? Because if you keep doing the same things in the same way, you get the same results. You don't get growth, you don't get improvement. And in this competitive business environment, you've got to grow or you go out.
Mm-hmm.
Not just backwards, you go out. So how do you encourage them to innovate, to think new things, to try new things, to challenge?
I guess you have to be a good example as well, but yourself has to be a good example yourself. And I've been trying a lot of things, and of course I speak English thanks to my education, so changed the way we do communicate within the company. Even in Japan, we have overseas staff, so most of meetings are held in English language.
So you
and
have
that was a
staff
big change.
here in the headquarters, or you're doing sort of Zoom or teleconference meetings, or
Conference meetings are constant.
constant? Okay.
We invested heavily in company computer systems, and with a touch of button, you can communicate with anybody in the entire world. Of course, you have to, consider time differences, but basically, made it so easy for them to communicate cross country. So they have no excuse for not being able to communicate. All you have to do is press a button and try to organize as many meetings as possible, involving people from outside, overseas to a Japanese meeting, and so that all these employees overseas are able to find out what's happening in headquarters as well. So vice versa, we had the good communication for the past 10, 20 years.
That's good.
Yeah, of course, I had to encourage over and over, every speech I made, for the past 10 years, all about communication. Yeah, communicate, keep repeating, that's what I had to do.
We found that in Japan, for a lot of gaishke companies, they have the same issue. They've got Japanese teams here and teams all around the world. And the Japanese teams tend to be very conservative and shy, actually, about speaking in English because they don't feel their English is perfect enough and they worry about and make a mistake. And so, I'm just wondering, you've saying before, you've got Chinese who don't speak that well but are willing to say something, even if it's not correct. They're willing to say it. Did you find that was an encouragement to the Japanese to think, well, you know what, their English is not perfect, but they're using it, and my English I don't think is perfect, but what's my excuse? Because these Chinese are doing it. Maybe I've got to do it too. Did that help to encourage people, even if it wasn't perfect, to try and get the communication going?
Right. It was, as you said, I mean, it is difficult for them to make I don't know. I mean, they're so shameful in culture. So it was very difficult in the beginning. But once you start speaking a little, I mean, everybody knows that, your English isn't perfect. So just between our colleagues and friends, colleagues and the people you don't have to make a perfect sentence. You just have to send a message that you want to send. And I even, allowed some of the older, employees to use Japanese and have someone translate it. There's always someone in a meeting who can translate. So worst comes worst, just speak in Japanese. And then these people who's been speaking only in Japanese started to use English little by little and have them involved, get involved in the circle of English. That's what I encourage the most. And I had a given chance for them to speak English, even though it was a horrible English. But it's just like I don't know, like a bunch of words together, But we could guess what he's trying to say.
And what about in the sense of innovation? Because that shyness about making a mistake in English also transfers across to shyness about making a mistake, or shame, as you said before, about making a mistake in the job. But if you're going to have creativity, there's bound to be mistakes. I mean, the whole process is full of mistakes, and you learn, oh, that doesn't work. So you've got to have a certain mentality to take on things that are new and be prepared to make mistakes. How did you go about encouraging people? You talked about taking accountability, but taking accountability for trying things and failing and getting them to learn from the failure.
This is not really just TCI, our company. In general, in Japan, not many companies do abandon people. You don't fire, as easy as Western work market. I mean, labor market. So you can give second chance to all these employees. Even though you make mistakes here and there, sometimes it's a big mistake. We never fire people by making a mistake. We fire people sometimes. We degrade them. I mean, we evaluate poorly for those people who did not try. Those people who did try and made a mistake, we never we never penalized those employees who at least tried, and that culture, wasn't, of course, wasn't trusted in the beginning, but by doing it over and over, people start to make a challenge.
Did you use mistakes from a leadership position to make the point that we encourage experimentation, we encourage creativity here? And yes, there was a problem with this project, but we learned, and so don't be afraid. Were you actually very proactively doing that, or did it happen but you didn't take any negative action? Which way did you go?
We proactively encourage them to make mistake.
So you celebrate the attempt, you celebrate the courage, you celebrate the creativity. Even if it didn't work out, you still say that was a great effort, we learned a lot, well done, that type of thing.
Right, and also we set up new challenge systems within the company, recognize all the employees globally who made the challenge, who made the contribution, who made the extra effort to accomplish something. So all these people who try to compensate, contribute, were started from India and China, because they're highly motivated to be. They want to be recognized. They want to be, rewarded. So it started off like that, from the Chinese and Indian employees, and soon after, Japanese started to pick up.
That's interesting. So the foreign, the foreign network, so to speak, or the foreign part of the company, which is now 60+% of the revenues, is actually drawing the Japanese domestic workers into that thinking.
Right.
That's something.
And we have periodical trips. Manager trips. Actually, physically, we make a trip, business trip. Bring in almost like 30 to 50 managers, travel all the way to the US, Europe, and China, India. These days, it's kind of going around. We went around all over the place. So we came back to Tokyo, but I did bring all these people to India, and especially those managers who's never stepped out of Japan, had to travel with me to India. That was a good experience to understand and realize, how different it is, the business culture is, and something that they can learn from the Indian culture, they can learn from the Chinese culture. And that was a good, and also in sense of team building, it was a very good experience for us. Of course, it costed me a lot of money, bringing all these people, here and there. But
would you do that once a year or once every couple of years?
That's what we did.
Every year?
Every year.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, that was a lot of money.
But you really invested in that.
Yeah. And then still today, we bring all the managers from overseas to invite them to Tokyo once a year at least, to have a conference, face-to-face conference.
And do you find, when we have in Dale Carnegie, we have a APAC region. We have every 2 years actually, have a regional convention, then we have an international convention. I've just come back from Phuket from our regional convention. And every time I go to these conventions for Dale Carnegie, and I'm outside of Japan, and I'm mixing with people from all around APAC, right? All the countries that you're thinking about. The energy coming out of those people, the hunger coming out of those people is incredible compared to Japan. You know, I always compare. Oh, Japan seems very calm, and they're like, yeah, you know. And I think, oh, wouldn't it be great if you could bring more of that energy into the Japanese team and make them feel a bit more hungry. So it sounds like you've been able to get a good mix there of injecting, because it must be very motivating to go to a country like India or China and see how dynamic people are and think, wow, it must make you feel like I should be more dynamic too. Is that how it worked out?
Yeah, I mean, they got, so much inspiration from interacting with the people from different culture, different background. As you said, the motivation and energy coming out of especially Indian people, you know, without any reward or anything, their willingness, their hunger to victory is so strong. And for Japanese, I had to prepare some kind of a reward to have them motivated. But the Indians, you don't need anything. Okay, this is first place, second place, third place, and start, and they just compete with their full energy. Yeah, it was amazing.
And what sort of rewards do you give the Japanese team to motivate them? Is it financial? Is it time off? Is it recognition? Your photograph up on the wall somewhere, best employee? What do you do?
Anything can work.
But what have you found has been working well for you?
I think it's about the reward is not gonna work, but I think recognition would be a big factor.
Why wouldn't the reward work?
I don't know. Somehow, in the long run, they have to, pay the rent and then build your financial wealth. But so they do care about the reward. But I think in that particular circumstance where you have to motivate people, the recognition comes first, I think.
And what sort of recognition is that? How is it portrayed, or how is it executed in the recognition?
Recognition to be able to do certain tasks, to prove his ability or her ability, and that
so
kind
that
of
means trusting, giving them the lead on a project or lead of a team. Is that
Exactly.
the recognition? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're showing the trust.
Exactly.
I recognise your ability, your motivation. I trust you. I'm giving you this responsibility.
Right. That would be the greatest reward for them.
So it's not money. It's that trust and recognition.
Right. The trust, and also, because I realize my word means a lot for them. When I give my own recognition to my employees, okay, Mr. Yamada, Mr. Yamamoto, please do this because I'm counting on you, and that makes total different outcome. If you say it, or if you ask somebody else to say it for you. So I think this recognition is highly important for Japanese management.
And you changed the culture in the company from being, top down, emperor at the top, king at the top, being the way your father ran the company, to something which I guess is more delegated authority. How did you find that transition between the two? To start getting people so you could work through people instead of having direct everything. How did you find that went?
I had to. There's no question. If you try to expand in not just in one location, but maybe like a global way, you have to probably delegate. You have to delegate, and then and in order to delegate what I have to do, that's how I worked.
So what I'm thinking more is, it's really a one-by-one process, isn't it? Because you've got your direct reports, and then they've got their direct reports. So you've got to go down this way. How did you convince them, one by one, to take more responsibility and more accountability? How did, you talked about your word having a lot of power. How did you do that in terms of at the initial start to make them start taking some of that work from you?
I mean, in the beginning, my word didn't mean anything. But
Well, you got them to do it somehow, so how did you do that?
Right. It's because sending very precise message to employees, entire employees, and I started to send bilingual messages, one in English, one in Japanese. Nobody ever did it, of course, it wasn't global at all. So, and trying to be as transparent as possible. Okay, this is where we are, and this is where we want to achieve. And there's a great potential to grow in a different market, especially overseas, US, Europe. The market size is triple, quadruple, so much bigger than Japanese market. And if we can accomplish such delegation, maybe we can achieve this much growth. And that's how I projected myself and suggested to my employees, this is what I want. And my message was very simple. Okay, we go here, we go to Mars, we go to Moon, whatever. Very simple message. And they're saying, hey, how are we gonna do that? And this is how we're gonna do. And getting down to a detailed plan, precisely worked out together with the management.
Are you doing business with Japan? Do you really know how things work? Japan Business Mastery provides the answers. Do you have the right networks and know how to create them? Do you know how to get on the same wavelength with Japanese buyers? Do you know what being trustworthy looks like from the Japanese perspective? Japan Business Mastery is based on more than 30 years' experience in Japan and will become your go-to guide. Want to succeed in Japan? Buy Japan Business Mastery now. So it's not you saying, here it is. You're saying, this is the broad plan. Now we collectively are going to get the detailed plan.
Right.
So they have ownership of that plan.
And we had that meeting many times over years. And I hired bankers, from all these banks that we deal with. And these bankers, at the age of around the 50 years old, like 3 bankers came to my company. Now we have some more, but these bankers did have similar background that I did, like a no-tech background, finance and global perspective, and these bankers helped me to organize that the dimension of structured management, the governance, the real governance. Okay, this is what I want to do, and given the message to those bankers, and they did set up all the meetings and for managers. So we, I called all the managers in one room, and we worked a problem for spending days and days. Okay, in order to make this really happen, we have to work this, and make a plan. We never made a plan because all the plan was made by my father. So nobody ever had a experience of making a plan. And you go as you turn out. I mean, nobody had experience in planning. And
so it's a revolution in the company.
It was a big revolution for the company. So they kind of liked it though. I mean, we plan and we execute, and if it's the outcome is intentionally designed outcome, they feel that they have control over the action, and soon they became so into the game, and ever since this meeting has been very popular, and we're continuing to have the periodical meetings. Now it's we are using internet and all that to make it more useful, but we have face-to-face meetings once a year, and in the beginning it wasn't efficient, as efficient as today, but we spent a lot of time communicating each other and trying to teach them, this is how we want you to make a plan and execute and bring a result. And this is after finishing one project, you move on to the next project, and next project, then you can accomplish the big the big number and big accomplishment. And after doing that for 5-10 years, their confidence becomes a real asset.
And do you, in some companies' cases, they'll bring foreign expats to Japan to work as a manager leader here. They'll take Japanese staff and put them over there. Do you mix it up that way, or do you have Japanese managing Japanese and foreigners managing foreigners?
Good question. In the beginning, only Japanese managers were in control. I mean, we didn't have any managers, foreign managers. So all the managers were Japanese nationals and communicated in Japanese language. So basically, local hires were outside of a management, outside of decision making itself. So the turnover of the employees were so much higher than today. And from my era, I had them included in the decision making process. Then Americans and Europeans, they want to really give some inputs, and they want their ideas. They go, oh, we should do this, we should do that. You're not doing it right. Making the complaints to headquarters decision, and war started. It was chaotic in the beginning, but it was a good chaos that we had, and of course, we give them answers. Okay, this is why we are not doing this, instead of your suggestion and your idea. And they started to kind of co-understand each other of their stories and the reason behind it. And the communication solved the entire thing. And expat, of course, remained in overseas local plants for a while. Even in India, we had the 3 expats to begin with, but now we have 0. Delegated all the authorities to local hired managers and senior level management. We even have a board member from a European office, and these people have a lot of good amount of influence in central management, central decision making, and I value heavily on their inputs. So entire company now has uh, like we basically don't have Japanese expats anymore.
So what about you? It sounds like you've built a very strong culture in the company, and probably a different culture to the culture that was there when your father was running it. How would you describe the culture of the company today?
It's a lot more mixed.
Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
People used to think, oh, India is so different, so different. But today they feel not so different from they used to think, And oh yeah, it comes to chemistry, comes to tech, it's all the same, wherever you are. The customers, their demand is almost identical to the demand here, and we start to see a lot of similarities and synergies by bringing the experience that we built in Japan to the new market in India, a new market in China, and they feel that advantage of doing, having a global reach, and also the knowledge and experience. So I think this culture is very effectively working for the company today.
I've asked you many questions on leadership. Are there any questions I should have asked you that I haven't asked?
Let me see. I think, this is my personal opinion. In Japan, even my daughter, she's 14 and she goes to a Japanese school. She is asked by a school to make a decision whether she wants to go to a science major or liberal arts major at the age of 14. I mean, she has no experience in judging, and not enough experience to judge whether she's more suitable in science or liberal arts. But the school forces students to make such a decision at an early age, and once you make the decision, you cannot change. And I had the same experience back in Japan. And once you select to go in a science path, you never learn management. And my company, TCI, consists of almost 70% engineers coming from engineering background with no management training. And this is a big disadvantage in order to have them, compete with the other trained managers coming from overseas.
So the competitors are probably all doing MBAs to learn management in addition to tech.
Right.
And the Japanese have only learned tech. Is that the...
Exactly. They're expert. Their expertise in tech is brilliant. They are highly skilled. They are highly knowledgeable in their specialties, but they only know that material. And this kind of education, I don't know if it's good or bad. I wouldn't judge, but this is how it is in Japan. And if you provide right communication skills, right leadership, education, training, then they be able to pick up those skills in order to lead the group, to communicate with the colleagues and other managers. So that you have to kind of understand that background is different from the overseas, especially where I got education in the U.S. Even you major in science, you have to go through 2 years of a minimum liberal arts education, which is basically leadership and communication. Is all included. Of course you learn the history and all that, but that's basic skill is quite valuable. I think the mentality is valuable, and the practicality to make to think logically even. Science is not necessarily logical. You may think science is very logical, but it's not. Business people are far more logical, logical than the science. I feel sometimes.
I wonder whether it's logical or practical. It may be that logic is logic, but sometimes you're so focused on the tech or focused on the content, you're not seeing big enough of the context and the big picture.
Right, yeah,
and
probably,
the practical application, you're not seeing that because you're focused on this one thing. The beauty of the one thing, right? Yeah. Maybe. If you had to give some advice to, say, someone who's a foreigner, they're coming to Japan for the first time, they've been given a post to run a business in Japan. If you had to give a couple of pieces of advice to them on how to run a Japanese team here, what would be some advice you'd give them?
There are a lot of advices I would love to make, but I've been communicating with a lot of Americans lately, and I kind of realized that cultural difference between not only America but the international level of communication is to how much you talk and you send the message to gain recognition by your friends, by your group of people in the room. But in Japan, it is not considered polite. And in Japan, the well-mannered conversation is based upon listening. You have to listen what the others say and be able to understand, be able to fully understand, like in depth, in order to make a comment. And feedback is considered, of course, if it's boss and and the colleague, it's fine. But if you're talking on the same level of people, then feedbacks are kind of considered as aggressive movement, and you have to be careful by giving feedbacks to Japanese. And I would highly recommend to listen carefully what they're trying to say, what they're the reason why they're doing this, the reason why they've been doing this, and their position, standpoint. Understanding their standpoint is going to help build a personal relationship, especially in Japan, I think.
Yeah, very important. Any other pieces of advice?
I don't know. Also, I don't know. Rather than just doing the work, I would encourage to explore cultural aspect of Japanese life. I mean, Japanese people are good hosts, basically. Their hospitality is in their DNA. I mean, they love to host you. So if you try to show some interest in culture, then the people around you are more than willing to show you the cultural background, and through that experience, you can build trust. You can build a relationship, strong attachment, and that is very important in doing business in Japan, and above anything. Otherwise, purely a business relationship is not gonna be as effective as you want to be, and in order to make it more, the most effective, I think building personal relationship. It doesn't have to be Japan, but everywhere it's pretty much the same. The personal relationship is highly important. So I would work there first, and in Japan still, going out after hours, after 5, is quite important. I mean, Japanese employees love to go out after 5, and they speak a lot more. They speak faster after 5. So that's what I kind of discovered when I joined my own company. They're so quiet in the meeting. And after 5, as soon as we have one drink, after kanpai, they start speaking like I've never heard before. Like, oh, you can talk as much. You are so quiet in the meeting, but yeah.
And do you still do that? Do you still go out and have drinks, or
right?
You personally though, you're still doing it yourself?
Yeah, we still do.
Oh, okay, very good. Yeah. Well, this has been a very fascinating discussion from the inside, a 6th-generation leader of a company which become a global company and it's now got 60% of its resources or revenues coming from outside of Japan. That's a complete revolution. And so I'd really like to thank Asakawa-san. Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed our talk. And please join me for the next episode of Japan's top business interviews. Thank you.